In this part, Frankl talks about logodramas, the super meaning, and life's impermanence.
And like that, he's gone.
He first writes that more and more people confront their psychiatrists with what he calls human problems rather than neurotic problems. We used to ask questions like, what is the meaning of life, or priest or rabbi, but increasingly doctors are confronted with this. If this sentiment was true in 1968, it has only become more true as our culture becomes less and less religious and we seek other venues for our questions of meaning. In many ways, it's just very hard to understand the meaning of our life, especially if we have to endure much of what seems to be unjust suffering. This is what Frankl calls a logodrama. Imagine a rat that is being tormented with chemicals because of a new drug that is being tested on it. This rat, without a doubt, is suffering for a purpose, for that lives may be saved with the findings of the medical study. But does the rat know that? Does the rat know that its suffering isn't meaningless? Unlikely. Well, what about us then? We often don't know what our suffering is for, and because it's in our nature to assume that we know most of what there is to know, we assume that our suffering is meaningless. But can we really be sure that we're the most advanced point of evolution in the universe? Is it not possible that there is still another dimension, a world beyond ours? A world in which the question of the ultimate meaning of human suffering would find an answer. Frankl clearly thinks so, and he calls this ultimate meaning that exceeds our finite intellectual capabilities super meaning. This super meaning may be hard to find, but what is demanded of man is not, as some existential philosophers teach, to endure the meaninglessness of life, but rather to bear his incapacity to grasp its unconditional meaningfulness in rational terms. Logos is deeper than logic. Frankl finds meaning not only in suffering, but in dying as well. He maintains that the only fading aspect of life is potential not realized. Everything else, everything actualized, is a reality in the very moment and saved and delivered into the past. It is preserved and it can never fade away. If something happened, it will always have happened. Nothing can change that. That's why the impermanent nature of our existence doesn't make it meaningless. It rather holds us responsible to realize our potential. When we're making a choice about which potential of ourselves to realize, we are making a choice about what to imprint forever on the immortal sands of time. Those are Frankl's words, by the way, not mine. I'm not that poetic. I wish I was. At any moment, man must decide, for better or for worse, what will be the monument of his existence. Logotherapy is to its core not pessimistic about our impermanent life in this universe, it's activistic. It tells us not to look with fear or regret upon the day we will cease to exist in this world, but to fill our life with meaning and look back with joy on the realities we were able to create. At this point, I was honestly a little confused with Frankl's logic, so if you are a little confused as well, this string of thoughts may be helpful. If you're still totally on board with Frankl, you can skip to... Now, this philosophy seems very optimistic to me. I agree with the point that realizing one's potential makes it permanent in this universe. But what's the point of this permanent mark if we as a species are impermanent and nobody's left to see it? While thinking this, I realized that if our meaning depends on other humans remembering us, there's ultimately no meaning at all. We'd be just like a bunch of Jerrys congratulating each other for being meaningful without any real reason.
Yes, Jerry Smith!
This sort of leads us back to what Frankl wrote earlier in the book. Life has meaning no matter if our species survives or not. Otherwise it never had any meaning in the first place. If Frankl's life's meaning had depended on him surviving the camp, that would have been a meaningless life to begin with. So we're back at the possibility of a super meaning, which isn't really scientifically provable, but we can at least see how it all ties back together. What I really like about Frankl's perspective is that even if it sometimes stretches the boundaries of science, it is still very pragmatic. It tells us to work on what we can change and focus our thoughts on that, which ultimately is the most productive thing to do. And the thing that is going to lead us to be kind, thoughtful, and fulfilled human beings. If we're doing something meaningful with our lives, helping others and alleviating some amount of suffering in the world, then we won't be asking the question about meaning. We won't be confused or nihilistic about it. It'll be obvious. What we're doing is the meaning of life. So I'll take it. Thank you for listening. Today we talked about logodramas, which is when we can't grasp the meaning of our life and fall into a vicious cycle because of that. We discussed the possibility of a super meaning and touched upon the impermanent nature of our life and how realized potential is a permanent mark in the universe.